Just I've got a local wood guy. I'm not picky. I just need it for the wood pit. Hey, can you send me program video? There we go. Why? Am I hearing my voice? I don't think I am. All right, we're good. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Vince on a Friday. Man, it is so great to have you with us, as always, the best damn audience in media. Thank you for being here. We've got a big show to close out the week. We're going to take a closer look at the left's insanity, how much President Trump is trolling their leading figures to the point that they're just being emotionally incontinent in public again. And also how to mourn the dead. We turned to Vice President JD Vance for a very good lesson in that as we look back on that tragedy in Minneapolis this week. And what else do we have? Oh, that's right. CDC officials getting canned, appropriately so. I'll get into all of the details of a scandal that the media are hoping to distort beyond recognition. I will clear things up for you. It's all ahead on this edition of Vince. Great to have you with us today. Hey, homeowners, when was the last time you checked on your home title? You know, that's the legal record proving that you own your home. If your answer is never, then this is for you. Scammers are stealing titles and your equity, well, it's the target. And here's how it works. Criminals will forge your signature on just a single document. Then they use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county. And just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. And that's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock. So you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Vince at HometitleLock.com. And you'll get a free title history report. Plus, you'll get a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes. And if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's right, Home Title Lock. You got to be able to protect your identity and your most valuable assets, and usually that's your home. Protect it. Go to HometitleLock.com. Use promo code Vince. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code Vince. Paid subscription after 14-day trial ends. Cancel anytime. Well, busy week. I hope you guys have a great Labor Day weekend planned. If you got a little bit of time off, please enjoy it. I hope you really do. It's going to be a wild one. If anyone, here's a question for the audience. This is just a random personal mission. If anyone has a great pizza dough recipe, can you send it my way? I'd love a pizza dough recipe. We have pizza every week, and I'm tired of. I like going out for pizza, but I don't want to have to buy it all the time. I want to make it. So if you have a fantastic pizza dough recipe, send it my way. I could really use it. My wife and I have been talking about this a lot. Okay, enough about that. Let's talk about Gavin Newsom. He's the governor of California, and he's an idiot. This guy is unreal. Have you seen him on social media lately where he does some sort of lousy version of who he thinks Donald Trump is, and then the left all applauds, like clapping seals in unison. Oh, Gavin Newsom, he's so wonderful. Look at him. He's really sticking it to Trump by pretending to be Trump. It's also pathetic. But that strategy, insofar as he's convincing idiotic Democrats, it seems to be working. Gavin Newsom is now the favorite for the 2028 Democrat nomination. Can you believe it? Oh, sure you can. You can believe it. Here is what The Hill says today. Newsom's support has surged among Democrats ahead of 2028, according to a new poll. Support for California Governor Gavin Newsom as the 2028 Democrat presidential nominee is surging, according to a new poll. An Emerson College polling survey released on Friday, that's today, showed 25%, a quarter of all Democrat primary voters say they would support Newsom now as the nominee. That's a jump from the 12% that he received in a similar poll conducted in June. Man, what a bunch of suckers that they are that easy to play, that all you have to do is tweet a bunch about how much you are pretending to be Trump. And sure enough, they're like, oh, that guy's a lot like Trump. He can be our Trump. Let's choose him. And so they're moving in his direction. Former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg received support from 16% of respondents, consistent with his June support, while Vice President Harris, her support slid from 13 in the June poll to 11 in Friday's poll. Everybody else, less than 10% support. That includes Gretchen Whitmer, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Jelly Belly, Pritzker, Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, Tim Walz, Andy Bashir, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Rahm Emanuel, and Ro Khanna, all just tiny little percentage points for all of those guys. But greasy Gavin Newsom is up to a quarter support. Of course, also what this poll indicates is nobody in that survey has majority support, even in their own party. So they've got problems, and I hope those problems continue. Gavin Newsom is this week demonstrating that he has no business being in any position of leadership because he can't control his emotions. Gavin Newsom is upset that you keep sending him MAGA hats. You know, do you remember it was about a week or so ago, and I'm not sure if it was on the podcast or the radio show that I mentioned this, but Gavin Newsom, or perhaps both, Gavin Newsom was sent a MAGA hat recently, a single MAGA hat, and he was upset about it. The MAGA hat said Trump 2028, and he goes, somebody sent me a MAGA hat, and that President Trump, he wants to run for re-election again. And we're like, really? On the basis of somebody sending you a hat? That sounds like it's very easy to troll you. And at the time I said, you know, it'd be funny is if we just started sending him more hats. We should send him more Trump 2028 hats. And sure enough, people started doing it. And I imagine there are people, chat, did any of you send Gavin Newsom a Trump 2028 hat? I'm wondering. Yeah, we should start doing 2032. Yeah, I do. One of the weird things about trolling Gavin Newsom this way is it does feel like you're wasting your hard-earned money on Gavin Newsom, of all people. He's not going to wear the hat. You spend some money on a hat, you kind of want it for yourself. Trump 2028. This is really funny. So here's Gavin Newsom. Here's an update to this story. He appeared on stage this week, and he's now thoroughly convinced that Donald Trump is going to end elections in the United States because Trump supporters keep sending him Trump 2028 hats. Take a look here. Cut 5. Here's Gavin Newsom.
I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
No, don't give me. You don't. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? This is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No. This guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there, January 6th? Did people actually think this guy's serious about having another election? You think he's joking about 2028? You think when he brings foreign leaders to the Oval Office and he goes to the White House store, have you seen this? Anyone? Is it just me? And he shows them the 2028 hats? He's not being serious? Wake up. You will lose your country. Again, it's not about Democrats. It's about all of us.
So you're absolutely convinced he's...
I'm absolutely convinced.
2028.
You've seen it. He's tried to steal the last election. He's trying to rig it in plain sight this time.
Oh my gosh, I can't even enjoy this more than I already do. This is so flat out funny to me. Fellas, just to be clear, Justin, it was a little hard to hear on my side because I think the audio was a bit gated. People could hear the audience laughing at Gavin Newsom in that, right? Okay, good. I'm just making sure. Yeah, the audio. So he goes, people keep sending me Trump hats, and the audience is laughing at Gavin Newsom. They think it's the funniest thing ever. That's amazing. People are sending you Trump 2028 hats? And Newsom's like, he wants to end elections. He does? Now, and then he goes on to say a bunch of other things that are really funny in that audio. One of them is, did you see he's got a store at the White House? It's not a store. I've mentioned this before. Here is a picture of it. This is President Trump showing Volodymyr Zelensky the hat collection in the White House. This room is just off the Oval Office. This is known as the presidential study. And inside of this room, the president has a bunch of Trump swag, including if you're watching the video podcast right now on rumble.com/Vince, you can see I'm circling with my mouse. A Trump 2028 hat is inside of the White House. There's a red one and there's a white one. And so the president walks these guys in and shows them the room, and he's showing off. In fact, he's holding up a 4 more years hat. It's hilarious. I just love this. Trump was right about everything. Make America great again. Gulf of America, USA. There's dark MAGA up there. We've got all the different hats. So President Trump walks this guy in, Zelensky and shows it to him. Now, this room, you know by now, is what President Trump refers to as the Monica Room. The Monica Room, because if you want more detail as to why it's called the Monica Room, go look up the Star Report from the 90s about what Bill Clinton did in this room with a certain intern at the White House. President Trump has turned that room into a MAGA Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's incredible. And people walk in and he gives them hats. He gives them hats from this very room. In fact, where am I? Hold up a second. Let me show you. Let me show you. This, I just realized I have proof to share with you. This right here. I'll come back to myself here. This is one of those hats. And I've got the Trump John Hancock on that bad boy. Keep America great. The president of the United States. I literally selected this hat from that room. The president showed me the room and said, would you take a hat? And I took a hat. And then he signed this hat for me at the Resolute desk. This was back in the first administration. It says Trump 2020 on the back of this thing. Here it says 45 on the side. We got an American flag here. How about so? In other words, I know of what I speak. I've been in the Monica Room, and I got the hat to prove it. So that's really funny. So Gavin Newsom is losing his mind over this fact. He's absolutely losing his mind over this detail. And the other piece is, did you hear what he said? He goes, "Who buys a $2 billion ballroom for his house and then just leaves?" Did you catch that? Now, of course, because he's a Democrat, he's getting everything wrong. So, one, estimates say that ballroom could cost upwards of $200 million, and even that seems pretty high, but that's a lot of money. The ballroom he's referring to is President Trump's donation to the White House, donation to the American people. The president is building a ballroom to host events at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, if President Trump was doing this for himself and not for anybody else, he'd build it at one of his properties, which of course he'd be entitled to do. He's not doing that. President Trump is generously donating a ballroom to the American people. And Gavin Newsom, who has never done one generous thing in his entire life, can't even understand that President Trump would do something like that. He can't. He has no idea what that's like. Generosity? To give away your own money to do something on behalf of your country? It's beyond his understanding. So the only way that he can possibly compute President Trump's behavior here is President Trump is spending money to build a ballroom because he's never going to leave the White House. Now, I'll remind you, in 2020, they told us the same thing. Remember that? That in the wake of the 2020 election, the left kept saying, President Trump's not going to leave. He's going to stay at the White House. He's going to resist leaving. He's going to be gripping the Resolute desk. You're going to have to drag him out of the building. He's not going to leave. And sure enough, what did President Trump do? He got in Air Force One. He headed out the door and he went to Mar-a-Lago. He left the White House in 2021. And then we went through the 4 years of hell that was the President Auto Pen. But they do this every time. The left always does this. President Trump's a dictator. He's never going to leave the White House. He's going to stay there forever. You guys are idiots. You guys are complete idiots. So that story this week is hilarious to me. I love that. I love that Gavin Newsom is being trolled by Trump supporters who are sending him hats, which just cracks me the hell up. It's so funny. So anyway, thank you for doing that. Thank you for sending Gavin Newsom all those hats. Speaking of President, the Democrats and who's going to be next up, we got an update this morning on Kamala Harris, which is wild. Did you know that Kamala Harris was given Secret Service protection beyond her time in office? Did you know that? Now, it's typical for the Vice President of the United States in the wake of leaving office to receive Secret Service protection for a little bit. It's like 6 months that they get it. And then beyond that, it expires. But we just found out this morning that President Auto Pen had, without telling you, secretly extended Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection beyond its expiration date. No one knew about this. It was done in secret. And so what ended up happening yesterday is President Trump ended it. President Trump found out about it, and he got rid of it, and rightfully so. And here's how CNN is framing this story today. They're making it out, of course, to be that not that Joe Biden kept this from us, that he did something secretly, but that Donald Trump reversed the secret thing that Joe Biden did. Take a look at this. Trump cancels Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail that was extended by undisclosed Biden order. That's really funny. I mean, isn't that unreal? So it's Donald Trump is the real problem. That's what they lead the headline with. But they finish with, oh, it was an undisclosed Biden order. President Trump has revoked Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection on Thursday, according to a copy of a letter reviewed by CNN. Former presidents receive Secret Service protection for life. That's former presidents, not VPs. Harris, as a former vice president, received 6 months of protection after leaving office, according to federal law. That period ended on July 21st. However, her protection had been extended for an additional year via directive, not made public until now, signed by then President Joe Biden shortly before leaving office. Was it signed by Joe? Signed by Joe Biden? Come on now. Who really signed? Can I see the signature on that, please? I'd love to see the signature on that bad boy. What auto pen signed Kamala Harris's ill-gotten Secret Service protection? This is all according to multiple people familiar with the undisclosed arrangement. This is the order that Trump just canceled in his letter titled Memorandum for the Secretary of Homeland Security and dated Thursday. Quote, you are hereby authorized to discontinue any security-related procedures previously authorized by executive memorandum beyond those required by law for the following individual effective September 1st, former Vice President Kamala D. Harris. Kamala D. The D stands for Democrat. The White House and Secret Service did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comment. Now, get ready for this. Now they say this is why Kamala needs it. Kamala Harris needs it because she's about to go on book tour. And how can she sell books if she doesn't have taxpayer-funded Secret Service protection? Her new memoir is coming out. It's set to be released in the end of September. It's going to put her back in the public spotlight. And so she's going to need Secret Service protection. Come on. Please. How many people have books that nobody reads? They don't need Secret Service protection for their stupid book tours. They go on to say presidents and presidential candidates face frequent security threats. They're justifying this based on the assassination attempts against Trump by Democrats last year. I'm sorry. What? It's Democrats you have to worry about, not Republicans. Democrat assassins you have to worry about. Kamala Harris does not need Secret Service paid for by you. Harris, according to people familiar with her security operations, CNN claims, this is my favorite part of the whole story, faced particular security concerns given that she was the first woman and first black woman in the role. What? What does that have to do with anything? When she's the first woman in the role, what in the world does that have to do with her security threats? She's the first black woman in the role. What does that have to do with her security threats? Unless this is a way of saying that, hey, she's a woman, so she's weak, so she needs more protection than the average man. Is that what they're saying? What in the world are they even saying here? Other than to offer, without any evidence whatsoever, the same baseline claim that the media always put forward, which is that America is both sexist and racist, and therefore she is subject to more threats because America sucks. What? Notice also that they capitalize B in black as if that's a real thing. The media have been doing that. And then also that they don't mention that she's also Indian. They didn't mention that she was Indian. Shouldn't that be a role here? Didn't come up. It didn't come. I guess she would not be under further threat for being Indian. This is so mindless. And honestly, it's so completely mindless. Yet CNN just regurgitates this garbage for the audience. And then they say these concerns have only increased after she became the nominee. The people familiar with the security operations told CNN. Well, yeah, Secret Service concerns do tend to rise when people become the nominee of a party. It stands to reason that the nominee would get protection. That's how we always handle these things. It's not unique to Kamala Harris, you absolute idiots. And now they're worried that Kamala Harris is going to have to pay for her own security. It's going to cost a lot of money. They said it could cost millions of dollars to protect her. The cost of mounting any similar level of protection privately would be expensive, possibly going into the millions of dollars annually. Oh, how sad. How sad. You don't think Kamala Harris could afford it? How is it every single one of these lefties, without any discernible life skills whatsoever, have exploited their time in government and have become filthy rich based on that? All of them. Why wouldn't Kamala Harris be in the same camp? She wants security. She can pay for it. I'm done with that shit. Not for me anymore. Not for me. Not for you either. Kamala Harris.
We're done with
that. Yeah, she can
shit.
afford it. Yeah, we are. We're done. We're done. All right. More ahead on this episode of Vince. I've got quite a bit to get to. Some drama at the CDC. RFK Jr. is firing everybody. The media are mad about it, which means, of course, that that's a ratification of RFK's decisions. Yes, fire the bad people. RFK's on the side of decency and health here. We'll get into that. That's all ahead on Vince. Before we get there, I want to thank our great sponsors who keep us going every day. That includes Birch Gold. Could the continued divide between Trump and the Federal Reserve put the rest of us behind the curve? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time? Or are you and I going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown? And what could this mean for your savings? Well, consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it so incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert it into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free information kit on gold. All you have to do is text my name, Vince, to the number 989898. Again, text Vince to 989898. Consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. That way, if the Fed can't stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Data and message rates apply. Thank you to Birch Gold for being a consistent and great sponsor of this show. Somebody asked me, where is the bourbon? My bad. I don't have any bourbon in the room right now. Actually, I do. I do have bourbon. I don't know if it's worth standing up to move it though. Anyway, I normally have bourbon behind me in the shot. We'll have it for the radio show today. I'll find something good for everybody to see. That's coming up today. All right. Yeah, Vince polished it off. That's true. It has been a crazy week. It really has been. It really has been. Okay. Let's see here. I've got the CDC firings. Yeah, I drank it all. That's right, Mr. Bird. The CDC saga. The Trump administration has canned the CDC director over a dispute involving vaccines. So here's what's happening. This is just behind the scenes, it sounds like. You've got a bunch of lefties and establishment, types who have not served the country well over the years. The health establishment has not resulted in better health outcomes. Have you noticed that the country has not become healthier over the last few decades, that chronic disease and obesity and all sorts of problems are afflicting the American public? And they quote health experts in the government and certainly in industry keep insisting they know exactly what they're doing when they don't. And in fact, if anything, they've worked against us. And so one of the reasons President Trump brought RFK in was to fix that problem. And he's been dealing with it in particular at the Centers for Disease Control, where he's dealing with something of an uprising from a deep state establishment that desperately does not want him to fix things, like coming up with a sensible child vaccine schedule, for instance, or getting rid of or severely drawing back the over-the-top COVID jab recommendations that the government keeps putting out. So RFK Jr. has a big fight on his hands, and it spilled out into public this week when they sought the resignation of the CDC chief, a woman by the name of Susan Monterez. Susan Monterez then refused to resign after she had apparently already committed she was going to. And then the White House announced, okay, then if you refuse to resign, you're fired. You're just fired. Axios had the report this week that Susan Monterez has now abruptly left her post just weeks after being sworn in. That's the Department of Health and Human Services announced this on Wednesday, and then her lawyers immediately disputed it. And then the White House came out and said, you know what? She claimed she was going to resign. And as her attorney's statement now makes clear, she retained an attorney called Abby Lowell. This guy represents all of the anti-Trump lunatics who are going after the administration now. The White House said, okay, then you're fired. Since you refused to resign despite informing HHS leadership of your intent to do so, the White House has terminated her from her position with the CDC. She's gone now. Okay, she's gone. So, where are we on this? Well, here's something else that's happening. In addition to her, there's been a bunch of other CDC people who are resigning this week, who are leaving because they're mad at the White House for doing the bidding of the American people on this when it comes to health. The CDC's chief medical officer, Deborah Horry, resigned her position, according to internal emails that were reviewed by Axios. Daniel Jernigan, the CDC's director of the National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases, also bounced. And then the CDC's director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, Dmitry Daskalakis, just resigned his post as well this week. And they're all quitting in a huff and releasing public letters about how grumpy they are at the Trump administration. And this Daskalakis character, Dmitry Daskalakis, this guy is a complete freak. First of all, in his statement about leaving, he used a phrase that is an instant red flag for why he deserves to be nowhere near America's health. Look at this. I'm unable to serve in an environment that treats the CDC as a tool to generate policies and materials that do not reflect scientific reality and are designed to hurt rather than to improve the public's health. The recent change in the adult and children's immunization schedule threatened the lives of the youngest Americans and pregnant people. Pregnant people.
It's treason, then.
Pregnant people. Are you serious? Chat. What do we call pregnant people? Let's be a little bit more specific than pregnant people. I believe typically we refer to those as either pregnant women or, even more specifically and more simplistically, mothers. Mothers, women. And then he goes on, he does it again. Pregnant people keeps appearing in his stupid letter. And then he signs off his stupid letter with Dmitry Daskalakis, MD, MPH, and then he puts his pronouns in the end of his signature. He, his, him. I don't know if you've ever seen a clearer example of why someone deserved to be fired than the one this Dmitry Daskalakis freak just gave. And we've got more evidence of this guy's idiocy. Actually, a lot more evidence of this guy's idiocy. Now, the Daskalakis dude is definitely among the most theatrical freaks who have served from the Biden administration. He is a Biden guy. In fact, he was the monkeypox czar for Joe Biden. Look at this. Here's photos of him dressed up in some sort of, shorty shorts. And this is the more conservative of the outfits he's wearing. Look at, oh my goodness. I'm not even going to show you the rest of this image. It's unreal. He's shirtless with his goofball tattoos. He's a freak. And there he is on the cover of some magazine, dressed in some sort of weird, strappy leather bondage thing with a pentagram in the middle of it. You guys can see this, right? For those of you watching rumble.com/Vince, there's a pentagram on his chest. He's been working in the Trump administration. He's been working at the CDC for the last 7 months. And I don't know how this guy continued to stick around. It's not like he was going undetected. He is as theatrically insane as you can possibly be. And he's also in this other photo, him and a couple of other gay dudes all standing together, posing in their underwear or whatever. But this is, I'm not sure, again, I have no idea which one it is, and I don't even want to dwell on the photo too much. But that's who this guy is. In addition, as the monkeypox czar, he went on national television. And remember, just to remind you, the monkeypox saga, what this emerged during Biden's administration. And what it consisted of was a disease that gay men in particular were especially susceptible to. And the chief conduit, the most damaging and dangerous and likely conduit, were gay orgies. So what happened was the Biden administration didn't want people to know that detail because if they felt if they expressed that detail, that it would stigmatize gay men. That was the low IQ thought process that they were undertaking. Now, just to be obvious about this, if there's a certain demographic who is most susceptible to the transmission of a disease, wouldn't you just be explicit about this? Here's who's most likely to get this. Here's what behavior is most likely to lead to monkeypox. But that's not what the Biden administration did. Instead, they sent this idiot out to go on MSNBC to speak to MSNBC's gay audience and then try and, speak about this in a euphemistic way that didn't give people any details whatsoever. Take a look. Here's Dr. Daskalakis just lying to the world and then referring to the very activity that'll get you monkeypox as a fun Friday night.
I work in HIV normally, and I'll tell you that, I always say that I've never made an HIV diagnosis in someone that hasn't somehow related to stigma. I think Mpox is the same. So really, stigma tends to be a barrier to testing, a barrier to vaccination. And so, really addressing stigma intentionally and making sure that we get the word out in a way that supports people's joy as opposed to, calling them risky. So I think, one of the things to think about is that, one person's idea of risk is another person's idea of a great festival or Friday night, for that matter. So we have to sort of embrace that with joy and make sure that folks know how to keep themselves safe.
One person's idea of risk, like transmitting monkeypox in a gay orgy, is another person's idea of joy or a fun Friday night. This guy said that out loud on national television, except he wasn't as explicit as he probably should have been as a public health official who should be trying to stop people from transmitting diseases rather than encouraging them to do it. Oh, you just overcome that stigma, sweetheart. You go out there and you catch monkeypox. It's so crazy. How did that guy stick around? I am glad that RFK Jr. is in the job. I'm a little worried, though, that Dr. Monkeypox stuck around for as long as he did. That kind of seems like a problem. So now's another time to audit these things because that should have not happened. We should not have made it to the end of August and still had monkeypox. But boy, that monkeypox is tough to beat, isn't it? It hangs around for a long time. Even when you think it's gone, it's still there. That's the moral of this story. Holy cow. Yeah, it's a good thing I don't have the bourbon on the desk. I'd be drinking it like crazy right now. All right, more ahead on this edition of Vince. We've got a lot to get to, including the Vice President of the United States went out yesterday and was visiting with workers in Wisconsin, and he had some really important messages to share, including about the loss of life in Minneapolis this week. I'll get to that in just a moment, all ahead on this Friday edition of Vince. I'm so glad you're here with me. Hey, do you ever think about aging? You ever think about it? Does your body ever force you to think about it? I do notice that as I've been getting older, that there are little things about my energy, especially, that have gone down. And you're always trying to figure out ways to get your energy back. I certainly do. And I'm excited to share something called C15 from Fatty 15 with you. It's the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. Fatty 15 co-founder Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson actually discovered the benefits of C15 while working with the U.S. Navy. And you see, based on studies, we do know that when our cells don't have enough C15, they can age faster. Fatty 15 can help repair and protect age-related damage to cells and help activate pathways in the body that repair mechanisms that support our overall wellness. Fatty 15 is science-backed, award-winning, vegan, 100% pure C15 supplement, and refills are shipped right to your door. Right to your door. And I take it every morning. I love C15. And it works great for me, and I think you're going to find it works great for you. In fact, before I even started up with C15 from Fatty 15, I did all the research myself, and I was thoroughly convinced, and now that I'm on it, I feel great. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/Vince. Use the code Vince at checkout. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Thank you to Fatty 15, fatty15.com/Vince, promo code Vince. Also want to thank American Financing for supporting the program. They're wonderful. They're very good. And if you've been living on credit cards just to cover groceries, gas, and bills, a lot of people have. You know, credit card interest has reached over $1 trillion thanks to Joe Biden's destruction of the economy. And those interest rates are brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to the banks when you could call my friends at American Financing? They've got mortgage rates in the fives. They're showing people every day how to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pocket and out of the hands of credit card companies. And right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high-interest debt with no upfront fees, no obligation, just a 10-minute call to a salary-based mortgage consultant. And here's the kicker. If you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right away. So don't wait. Call American Financing now at 888-879-6460. That's 888-879-6460. AmericanFinancing.net/Vince, NMLS number 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the fives start at 6.327% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 888-879-6460 for details about credit costs and terms. Thank you, American Financing. And then Allison just let Major into the... Come here, Major. Come here, buddy. Come here. Right here, place. Right here. There you go. Let's see. He's... Let me get the Major cam on. Is he? There he is. There's Major stopped by, and then he instantly started whining the second he came into the room. So I think there's some other activity that he'd like to be doing right now. But Major has stopped by. And for those of you who were listening on the radio show yesterday, I was describing with some frustration that Major stole my other dog's medicine yesterday when I wasn't looking. Raina, I was trying to give Raina some medicine. I put it in one of those pill pockets. She wouldn't take it from me, so I dropped it in her food bowl, and then I walked over to a cabinet and I opened it up. And in the 4 seconds I was in the cabinet, I heard a dog gulp up the treat, and I look over and it's this one. It's Major. He's doing fine. He's doing fine. But back to remedial training we go. And yes, if you missed the radio show, you should check it out every day, 12 to 3 Eastern time. We're on rumble.com/Vince. We do the show live on Rumble. And also, you can check your local listings, thevinceshow.com. Check your local listings to get it there. All right, let's see. Yeah, Major is chill. And Boiling Point Live says he's the rock star of this show. I totally agree with you. Not for a moment am I hesitating about that. Okay. Ugh, I still got Dr. Monkeypox's picture up on my computer. I got to get rid of that. Okay, let's see. I've got some other things. Oh, JD Vance went to Wisconsin yesterday. Gave a great speech. Talking to workers there. And he took some time out to pray for the children who were killed this week in Minneapolis at the Annunciation Catholic Church. And look, the Democrats have, of course, handled this completely incorrectly and intentionally so. They've just launched attacks on Christians this week. They've condemned people. They've belittled people who pray. They were even belittling the children who were engaged in prayer as the shooter began opening fire, saying things like, oh, prayer didn't save your life. How disgraceful you have to be. How disgusting do you have to be to say something like that about slaughtered children? And yet that's what they said. Meanwhile, they've also been concealing the mental illness of the shooter, specifically because he's transgender, and they don't want people to know that. And to the extent they talk about it at all, they claim you're not allowed to talk about it. It's all too much. Here's the vice president of the United States yesterday, instead of being a callous jerk, being very sensitive to the loss that this country just experienced. Here he is.
If you are the praying type, I would ask you to join me in prayer. I'm just going to say a prayer for the 2 little kids who lost their lives yesterday. And this is a prayer we say a lot in my church, and I've always found it very meaningful. It's very short. But eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.
That is
Thank you all.
The reason we pray. You pray for the souls. You pray for their souls. And JD Vance, isn't it nice to have a serious vice president? Kamala Harris would never in a million years. And that's sad. That's sad for her soul. But there's JD Vance yesterday doing his thing. And he did a really nice job. Boy, what a great representative of the Trump administration. And the more we see of him, the better. I think he's great. I did see, actually, I didn't include it in my notes, but I will, let me pull it up now, that the vice president has indicated that he is ready to be the president of the United States if called upon. And he just did an interview with USA Today. And here's the clip. I'll share this with you. Where the vice president talks about this, and he says, "Look, I don't expect to have to be the president right now, but if it comes, I'll be ready for it. I stand ready to do whatever the American people call me to do, whatever God calls me to do. But the reality is, the president of the United States is in great shape. There's no reason really for me to even be thought of as president right now because President Trump is doing great." Here's the vice president. Listen.
As vice president, you're a heartbeat away from the presidency. And your boss is one of the oldest people to ever be sworn into office. You're one of the youngest people to ever be second in line. Are you ready to assume the role of commander-in-chief? And why should Americans trust you to lead the country?
Now, let me just pause there because I really want to emphasize something. The media are talking about this as if JD Vance is pulling a Kamala Harris, like he's rubbing his hands together in the hopes of something important. Some dire thing is about to happen to Trump, and I'm going to leap in. That is not at all what happened here. The interviewer asked him the question, and it's the same question you ask every vice president. If the worst were to occur, would you be able to step up to the plate? Are you ready for that role if necessary? So JD Vance merely answers the question.
Well, I've gotten a lot of good on-the-job training over the last 200 days, but also say that the president is in incredibly good health. He's got incredible energy.
Right.
And while most of the people who work around the president of the United States are younger than he is, I think that we find that he actually is the last person who goes to sleep. He's the last person making phone calls at night, and he's the first person who wakes up and the first person making phone calls in the morning. So, yes, things can always happen. Yes, terrible tragedies happen, but I feel very confident the President of the United States is in good shape, is going to serve out the remainder of his term and do great things for the American people. And if, God forbid, there's a terrible tragedy, I can't think of better on-the-job training than what I've gotten over the last 200 days.
Yeah, Nair in Florida on the chat just says, what's he supposed to say? No? Yeah. Would you be ready if necessary? No, I wouldn't. I'm woefully out of my depth. Call me Kamala Harris. I can barely describe what's going on in the world. Of course, yes, of course I'm ready, and I've had important on-the-job training. I wonder, and I feel like we have the answer just based on his activity in public, but I do wonder to what extent JD Vance is involved in every one of the big decisions, you know? Because I anticipate what I think is going on is I think the president of the United States realizes the importance of integrating his vice president and perhaps his heir into all of the big decisions, making sure he's in the room so he can see the process, making sure he sees all the intelligence, making sure that he understands all the machinations of government. Because remember, President Trump had to learn the hard way in the first administration just how difficult the federal government was to whip into control. And in fact, we still got problems. We still have, Dr. Monkeypox hanging around the administration for 7 months and nobody knowing about it. So obviously, there's still things that can be learned about making this government more efficient. I'd like to think that Vice President Vance is being included in everything because we need a deep and talented bench ready to go for the next administration. Despite Gavin Newsom's insanity, thinking that President Trump is going to end our, what's the phrase he uses? End our democracy. Get rid of our constitutional republic, in other words. That's not what's going to happen. President Trump is setting up a legacy that he needs to hand off to people who can responsibly carry it forward. And JD Vance right now is at the front of the pack to do something like that. So interesting, of course, to see JD Vance in these environments. And good to hear him, good to hear him give an obvious answer here. Yeah, not a democracy, says Chrono Flux. All right. We've got some other things here. Oh, the children. Let me focus back on the kids for a moment because this does matter a great deal. We now know the names of the children. A lot has been said this week about the multiple names of the shooter, given that he was a transgender dude with all sorts of mental delusions. And this is one of those situations where it is worth mentioning details about the shooter because, it wasn't the gun that killed those people. It was the shooter that did that. And we want to get to the bottom of the mental illness that led to that and the people who encouraged that mental illness, of course. But it is also worth reflecting on the names of the children whose lives were lost this week, more importantly. Among them, Fletcher Merkel, 8 years old, Fletcher Merkel, and Harper Moisky, 10 years old, both died this week when they were seated inside of the Annunciation Catholic Church. The shooter allegedly began firing through that window and didn't even have visibility as to who he was shooting or where they were. Just a hail of bullets coming in through the window, striking both of these children and taking their lives. Fletcher Merkel's father addressed the press yesterday, gave a statement, and gave encouragement to the rest of the country to hug our own children close as we remember the loss of his son. Listen to Fletcher's father. This is yesterday in Minneapolis, cut 2.
Moving forward, we ask not for your sympathy, but your empathy. As our family and the Annunciation community grieve and try to make sense of such a senseless act of violence. Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life. Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us.
One of the things that strikes me about that father was the extent to which he was able to maintain his composure as he said goodbye to his son in that venue. And think about it, that was Thursday afternoon that the father said this. It was 24 hours earlier that his son was killed by a mentally ill person who was very clearly dealing with demons. And I don't know if I would have the strength to maintain that composure. I'm in awe of his ability to do that. And he came out with just a strong message for people to demonstrate the love for their kids that he can't demonstrate in person anymore with his own child. I do think it is one of those things that hits very different. I think once you have a kid and you begin to process what it must mean to lose a child when you have one, it really hits home, doesn't it? You think, oh my goodness, I have a daughter who's about the age of these children, and I've been struck all week, well, since the shooting, by that thought. I just keep thinking about what must that be like. I don't want to experience that. And so I'm, in my household, and certainly constantly now, I'm lifting up prayers for those families as they go through the unimaginable. And I pray that something good can come out of all of this. We've got to get serious as a country. I said it yesterday. It is far past time for us to do something about this. This kind of violence can't take place anymore. These kinds of shootings can't take place anymore. We've got to put an end to them. There's always going to be people who are going to hurt others. That's impossible to ultimately stop. But preventing it to the greatest extent possible really matters. And the way to do that is to make sure that people can defend themselves. When a shooter comes, we need people who are able to shoot back, for sure. And the other thing is, we need to stop the mental illness. We have to stop encouraging it. We have to treat it. We have to treat these people like they are humans who are going through immense problems, and we should not be exacerbating those problems. And yet we have an entire political party that's dedicated to exacerbating mental health problems, the Democrats, and then attacking you for confronting this. No more. No more. We have to stamp out this demonic tendency from our society. And we need to re-embrace people as humans. And we need to get them the help that they deserve. And stop making things worse. And so every time, it's so weird. The left is so freaking crazy. I'm listening to media people this week wrestling with what pronouns to use as they describe the murderer. And it's a sign that their minds are still captured by a completely destructive ideology. And some of these guys are just doing it because they're just callous and brazen and they want to make a buck and they know that they have to keep serving their masters to do that. But others think that they're actually coming from a place of goodness when they do this. You are not. You are not. In our culture, decency has been exploited for our own destruction. Don't allow that to happen anymore. Fight back against it. We've got to, so yes, let's do something about this. The do something crowd. We're the do something crowd. We are the ones who've been doing something. The left has been exacerbating the problems. Yesterday at the White House, Trump's White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, she did another great press briefing. She was asked by my friend, colleague, White House correspondent Reagan Reese about Jen Psaki. Remember, Joe Biden had a couple of press secretaries. They were all awful, including Karine Jean-Pierre and Jen Psaki. And Jen Psaki condemned people who pray this week. She was one of the many Democrats who was crapping all over people who turn to prayer to pray for the souls of these children and pray in the wake of a tragedy like this, pray in the wake of an attack on a Catholic church. And so thus, by extension, of course, attacking Christians everywhere. And Reagan Reese asked Caroline Leavitt, a White House press secretary who wears a cross around her neck, what she thought of her predecessor's condemnation for the faithful. Here is Caroline Leavitt's answer yesterday, cut 3.
Yes, I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer, who believe that prayer works, and who believe that in a time of mourning like this, when beautiful young children were killed while praying in a church, it's utterly disrespectful to deride the power of prayer in this country, and it's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like Jen Psaki needs more prayer. So there you go. A good answer from the White House press secretary. She wasn't the only one. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, jumped in to throw a right hook as well yesterday at the people who are treating people of faith so poorly. She said those like Jen Psaki and Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, the idiot mayor of Minneapolis, who criticized prayers in the wake of the Minneapolis tragedy, are expressing the same anti-God sentiment that motivated the shooter. That's true. In fact, the shooter wrote on one of his magazines, "Where is your God?" mocking the very notion that God exists and represents love, is love. He aimed his wrath at God, Tulsi continues, by trying to stop people with his bullets from praying to God. Now is the time for us to come together and join hands in prayer for the children who were killed, their loved ones, and those who survived this horrific shooting. Tulsi, boy, how much has Tulsi impressed you? Tulsi's come through. Tulsi Gabbard has been a complete star in this administration. And man, she went through the ringer being in that Democrat Party for a while, coming out of Hawaii. You know, she's a military veteran. She was treated as a terrorist by her country, by the left, controlling the levers of power, treating her as a terrorist, following her on airplanes, sending the air marshals after her. And now she's the head of national intelligence. And there she is reflecting on the very real existence of God, praying for those kids in Minneapolis and condemning the people who continue to lead these attacks on Christians. You know, speaking of those attacks, you should know by now that you've got the head of the FBI is, of course, Kash Patel. Kash is all over this issue. He says that what we're dealing with here is a hate crime. The FBI is investigating all of this week as a hate crime. And he offered some updates yesterday on what exactly they're digging into. He said, as we continue to investigate yesterday's barbaric attack from Robert Westman, note here what Kash Patel is doing. He's not playing games with the name Robin Westman, the female or she. No. As we deal with Robert Westman, the male subject, Kash Patel writes, our teams have gathered information and evidence demonstrating that this was an act of domestic terrorism motivated by a hate-filled ideology. So here are some updates, Kash says. 1, the subject left multiple anti-Catholic, anti-religious references, both in his manifesto and written on his firearms. Yes, in fact, Remember, one of the images was of a shooting target with the face of Jesus Christ on the target. The shooter's motives are not a mystery. They're found all over the evidence that was instantly being shared online yesterday or 2 days ago. Additionally, Kash Patel says the subject expressed hatred and violence towards Jewish people, writing Israel must fall and free Palestine, and also using explicit language related to the Holocaust. What Kash is referencing, as far as we can tell, is the reference that more than 6 million Jews should have died in the Holocaust. That's the message that the shooter wrote down on one of the guns. He wrote an explicit call of violence against President Trump on a firearm magazine. Yeah, in fact, in multiple places, he wrote on the guns and on the accessories that he wanted President Trump to be killed. ABC did not tell you that this week. They concealed that detail. They merely said that President Trump's name was written on the gun. Now, that's not true. It was President Trump's name was written on the gun in the context of this guy wanted the president dead. And the FBI investigation, Kash says, is still ongoing. We will employ all of our counterterror tools to ensure this is fully investigated and deterred. And as promised, we will continue to update you when able. When able. I just want to remind you of the thought experiment here. Would we have gotten a similar statement from any director of the FBI under Joe Biden? What are the chances that they would have come out and announced that we're doing a hate crime investigation? We believe that this is anti-Catholic, anti-Christian. All of the evidence points to a bigoted attack on these children. What are the chances these guys would have ever come out and said any of that? No, 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 no. None. No way. Yeah, the chat agrees. Yeah, good Catholic Joe Biden, says Nair in Florida. Yeah. No, and the Biden administration, the guy who was constantly telling us what a devout, remember the word that the media kept giving us? He's a devout cat. Not a chance. Not a chance. In fact, you can kind of imagine how the FBI under Joe Biden would be dealing with this right now. They would be downplaying the fact that the killer here was a mentally ill, self-described transgender person. They'd be downplaying that fact. They'd be concealing it from you. They'd be working to hide from you the manifesto the same way they did in the Nashville shooting at the Covenant School. As that church, as that Christian school had to deal with a horrific shooting at the hands of a transgender killer. When the left covered up the details to prevent you from knowing what actually happened. Yeah, they'd be doing the same thing. So, past performance is a clear indicator of future results when it comes to the left. And that is what they would be doing. So God bless the people who are working on this. God bless the families there at the Annunciation Catholic Church as they deal with the horrific fallout of all of this. I am very, very sorry for what they've had to deal with, and my family is definitely praying for them. One more piece here that just in terms of one of the things we do on this show is we like to contemplate, what's coming next in all of this. And we just got a really sizable breadcrumb from the woman who runs the Civil Rights Division at the United States Department of Justice. Harmeet Dillon is a wonderful human being who is genuinely investigating real violations of civil rights in the United States. This is an office that used to be used for all sorts of stupid left-wing activism that had nothing to do with protecting civil rights and instead depriving people of their civil rights. Harmeet Dillon has right-sized this operation, and she announced yesterday that the DOJ Civil Rights Division is now launching investigations into Minnesota officials for all of the damage that they've caused that led up to this shooting this week. Now, she doesn't give us all these details, but she heavily suggests what I just said. Listen to Harmeet Dillon here, cut 4.
Minnesota has led the way in actually suing the federal government over our attempts to ensure equal protection and equal rights for girls when it comes to these sporting situations. I find it very interesting that these politicians in that state are, blaming guns, blaming the president, orange man bad, the usual tired rhetoric that they resort to, when in fact they should go and look in the mirror, because they've created a toxic environment for women. They've created a toxic environment for people of faith, and they've created a situation where everyone has to lie to get ahead in their state. It's really problematic, and we have more investigations to come into Minnesota. I can't talk about them now because we haven't announced them publicly, but there will be more.
that we have more investigations to come. I can't announce specifically what they are, but they're on the way. So that's the message from Harmeet Dillon. So when those pop up, you will have known about them. She said those comments on Real America's Voice. Very cool. Thank you for her being there. Really appreciate that. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful Labor Day weekend. If you get a chance to celebrate with family and friends, just to be together, that's always good. Just a note for you for Monday, we have a Labor Day special for you coming up. I have a great interview for you to see with Matt Van Swol and his wife, Erin. If you don't know their story, you are going to be really impressed by it. This is a married couple with 3 children, live in Western North Carolina. They went through the horrors of Hurricane Helene and all of the flooding that ensued. And then they were abandoned by the American left and rescued by the American right. And that changed everything about their worldview. Lifelong Democrats suddenly realizing they had it all wrong. An amazing story. And some very instructive lessons in our conversation. You'll get to see that on Monday right here on Vince. I can't wait to be back with you next week. I hope you have a great weekend. I will be on the national radio show today, 12 to 3 Eastern time. Check it out, thevinceshow.com for your local listings, or watch us live on Rumble, rumble.com/Vince. Always love having you. Have a great weekend. Coming up next, right here on Rumble, Tim Pool is doing it today. Here he is.